like ask the question, if you could just let me know.
Of course.
Hello?
Sorry, I said yeah, I will do.
Okay, cool. That's fine. So yeah, welcome everyone. My name is Simran. I joined the civil service in August. So basically, I'm currently a student at Aston University, studying economics and management. But I'm taking a year out of my degree, kind of like a gap year, to work at the civil service. And it's going to count towards my degree, and then I'm going to do final year. So yeah, I before joining this job, I knew a bit about trade from my degree, but not necessarily about data, which is what my job mainly involves. It's a lot of like data analysis. So I spent the whole of my second year applying for placements, and I went to 10 interviews before getting this job. So yeah, I feel like I have a lot of experience with interviews, and the team that I'm part of right now is called the Official Stats and Briefing Team. So my main job is to use data that's given to me by the ONS to create briefs, which are kind of just like a document that explains all the data and what it actually means, with like some graphs and stuff that are used by the public. So yeah, Flo, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, so hi everyone, I'm Flo. I'm also pretty new to the civil service. So I joined in October last year after graduating from uni. I'm on the FAST stream, which is a graduate scheme that basically allows you to rotate between different jobs and different departments within the civil service for 3 or 4 years before you decide what you really want to do for your career. So I'm in my first posting at the Department of International Trade, same as Simran. But I work in internal communications, which is basically all the communications that happen for the civil servants that work at the Department of International Trade. So about like what their jobs are and how they can do their jobs better, how their work contributes to what the department does as a whole for the government, and also sort of the human resources stuff about pay and all that fun stuff. So it's quite varied, but pretty different to what Simran does. I'm definitely more than others kind of girl. Yeah. Shall we move to the CV section? Yeah. Do you want to take this, Simran?
Yeah, sure. Sorry, Flo. I can hear you kind of, but not really. So yeah, okay. So we have a question for you guys. So what do you guys think makes a good CV? You can shout out answers or write in the chat. Well, I can't see them if you write them in the chat, but Flo can read them. So yeah, we'll give a minute or two for you guys to answer.
I think this is a pretty vague question. So if you want to, you can be as vague as you want. Like, what is a CV? Have you ever written a CV? We've got a response here. It says a CV should be clear and concise. Very good.
Yeah.
Another one, it shouldn't be too long. Very true. List your experiences. This is really good. You guys sound like you know how to write a CV already.
Yeah, well done, guys. You guys have got some good answers. Shall we move on?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So
you should have all your qualifications and qualities achieved throughout your experiences. However, you should keep it clear and not overload. Brilliant.
Yeah, that's a good answer. But yeah, so we have come up with this 4-stage process for CVs with impact. So CVs that are gonna get employers' attention. So the things that you should focus on are 1, the employer's needs, 2, your message. So like how you want to portray yourself to the employer. 3, your evidence, which is kind of what you guys talked about like your qualifications, your previous job experiences, and 4, presentation, so the actual layout of your CV. So their needs. This comes before you start thinking about your CV. Read the job description carefully to find out what the role entails. This is really important because you want to kind of adapt your CV so that you fit the job description, because then you'll know that you're exactly what they're looking for. So kind of think of a job description like a mark scheme, I guess. Like when you're studying for exams, you look at the mark scheme and think, okay, this is what I need to do to get the question right. So that's kind of like how I think of it. Read the person specification. So that's kind of similar thing. Research the organization. This is quite important as well to show that you know about the company. And read the required qualifications, because if you're this is something that the employer will look at quite quickly. Like they'll know straight away if you're qualified or not qualified for the job. So that's really important. And don't let the desired/preferred qualifications put you off, because if your CV and I guess cover letter application is really good for the job, then you can still be considered for it. The second thing is your message. So think about how your skills and experience relate to the job description. Because sometimes even if you have an experience that is like something that they're not asking for, if depending on how you write about it, you can adapt it so that it's relevant to the job or the skills that they might be looking for. Think about how your personal attributes relate to the person specification. That basically means kind of what I already said, like show off your most important skills. Change your CV depending on the job which you're applying for, which is basically saying don't just have one generic CV. Sometimes like adapt your CV towards the job, and use key terms from the job advert in your, that says UK, that should say CV. So an example is if I'm applying for a job in the homeless charity sector, I will add all of my voluntary experience to my CV and emphasize my passion for equality and alleviating homelessness. And if you're applying for a job in the finance sector, I will add all of the finance-related courses which I will done and give examples of how I'm analytical and mathematical. The third thing is evidence. For each attribute which you mentioned, you must give an example. I'd agree with this statement. So don't make any statements which are not backed up by evidence. These do not necessarily have to be work related. They can be from education, sports, volunteering. This is really important because a lot of jobs ask for like prior experience, which a lot of people don't always have, especially at your age. If you're in full-time education, not everyone is going to have a job at the same time. So it's important to use kind of other things that you may have done to highlight like work-related skills, like teamwork, for example, and stuff like that. You can show that you don't need a job to show that you have those skills. Only add relevant information. For example, if you're applying for a job in childcare, there's no need to list every accounting course. That's kind of like what I said before about adapting your CV, and don't get caught in a lie. I would not encourage you to lie about things you've done. If you feel like your experience isn't relevant to the job, I feel like I'd say just try and adapt it to make sure that it is. I wouldn't say like lie or make something up to put on your CV. So we have another question, which is how long do you think the average CV is looked at by a recruiter? If you guys want to drop some answers.
So we've had under a minute, 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 2 to 5 minutes. Someone said they think it depends on how many CVs there are, which is a good point. And a lot.
Yeah, that is a good point.
There'll be a lot, especially at the moment, a lot of people apply for one job, so I think that's a good point.
Okay, so the actual answer is, hello? Flo, did you say something?
No, I got an email and it made a noise.
Okay, sorry. But yeah, so the actual answer is 5 seconds, which I was surprised to hear about when I read over this presentation. But 5 seconds just goes to show that you really need to make your CV stand out, because that's the first thing that the employer is gonna see about see about you, before your cover letter and etc., the later like stages in the job application. Okay, so the fourth thing that I wanted to talk about is presentation. So these are all just some basic things that your CV should include. I'm not going to go over every single point, but if you just Google like example CV for job, or like for a specific job or just for any job, a lot of them will include these things. I'd say also the point about LinkedIn. LinkedIn is like an online. LinkedIn is kind of like having an online CV. So if you make a CV and then you make a LinkedIn, you can literally just copy everything from your CV into your LinkedIn, and that will help you to connect with people. And it's basically like another job website. So it'll help you find jobs. When you're like after like leaving school or graduating or whatever. What else would I have to say? Yeah, and then also if you go on Word, there's a lot of templates for CVs which you can use that kind of look similar to this. So another question we have is, I want you guys to just read through the CV really quickly and decide if you think this is a good CV or a bad CV.
We haven't had any responses yet, but I think this is quite hard. Oh, we have had one. Not too bad, but quite a lot of read. Bad. It's really plain and wordy.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're right, aren't they, Simran?
Okay, cool. Shall we move on?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I think there's another example.
Oh, there's another CV. Okay, so I'll give my opinion about this CV. So I think that this CV is it's not a bad CV. I think it's good that it's got a lot of, the person clearly has a lot of experience, and you can see that they've got a degree and a lot of qualifications. However, their bullet points don't, some of them don't really say, actually the bullet points are quite good, but the bottom achievements part doesn't really say what he's achieved. He's saying he's achieved them, but they're not saying what anything else about it. So it's like there's no point listing, yeah, like I did this, I did that, if you're not going to explain like what you learned or what skills you gained from it. So that achievement section should be more like the rest of the experience section, where they explain clearly like what they actually did in their job. So then we've got this CV. If you guys would like to, we'd like to hear your thoughts about it, if you think it's good or bad.
So someone said good because it's clear and it's specialised on one career path or area. I think this is pretty good. I have mine in this format. Nice. It's into the eye. I would want to read it because it's well structured. It's better. It captures the reader's attention by using colour. Good structure.
Yeah, I'd agree with all of the responses that this is definitely a better CV, especially with the presentation. It's a lot more eye-catching and a lot more clearer to the reader, where all the different sections are the contact details, education, experience. She's explained clearly what she does in her experience, and she has a nice introduction paragraph explaining what kind of person she thinks she is, and she's come across really well. And it's very specific to the sector that she works in, which you can clearly see is childcare. So yeah. Okay, what about this one?
Joanne did just mention though that the image is like adding a photo is maybe, and I would agree. I think a lot of the time, especially employers are looking to keep as anonymous as possible who their applicants are.
Yeah, I agree, because like I don't have a photo on my CV, and I've never actually seen a CV with a photo on it. So yeah, I don't think that's something that is like it's not necessary for any job. So yeah, don't feel like you have to put your photo on your CV. But yeah, we'll move on to this one.
Yeah, people saying that the font isn't right, which is not enough detail. True as well. I think the bit at the bottom is quite funny where it says, "Sometimes I donate."
Yeah.
That's a bit silly.
Yeah, definitely. This is an example of what your CV should not look like. It's very brief. It doesn't really tell you anything about the person, this lady Joanna. It doesn't tell you anything about her skills. Yeah, it doesn't really show off what she has to offer. So that's not a good example. I think this is the last one. So yeah, what do you guys think about this one?
So someone said too much info but decent. I think that's a good point. You maybe wouldn't get as much from that in a 5-second glance. It looks professional. Best one yet, minus the photo from Joanne. Details, yeah, I think those are good.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think this is very similar to the one of the previous ones we had, where her photo wasn't needed, but the rest of the CV was really good, which is what I'd say about this one too. So yeah. So like I said earlier, you can find similar templates on Word, on this page in Word. Yeah, you can literally type in the search thing, resume and cover letters or CV. So yeah, and then these are some things that you can do to make yourself more employable, other than getting another like job. So you can do volunteering. This will give you access to roles you're interested in. For example, if you're interested in support work, you can do volunteering with homeless organizations or care homes. Shows your passion, and it can set you apart from other candidates. Carry out work experience. I know now, like with the pandemic, it's obviously really hard to find work experience, but there's a lot of online like alternatives you can do. There's like online courses which you can find on like Open University and websites like that, which might be a good alternative for work experience and ways to show that you're interested in whatever career paths you guys want to go into. So that's, yeah, like the next point, keep learning, carry out short course which relates to what you're interested in. You could learn a language, you could start a side business. That seems, yeah, if you really wanted to. Get in touch with recruitment companies. That's why LinkedIn is good, because even if you connect with people you don't know, you can make really important connections, and then you can message people and ask them for advice, and you might hear about opportunities that might not be advertised. And yeah, like the next point says, become active on LinkedIn by connecting with people from your industry. And then Flo is going to take over now and talk more about cover letters. So shall I keep presenting
If you don't mind.
what? Yeah, sure. Okay, cool.
So cover letters. I think cover letters are, well, they were for me one of the most daunting things, because I feel like people don't talk about them as much as CVs. But yeah, we've got a question here for what do you think makes a good covering letter? Or what is a covering letter in general, if you like. So if you want to post some responses in the chat, I'll read them out. Or if you don't know, that's fine too.
Yeah, honestly, when I was in sixth form, I don't think I'd ever written a cover letter before.
Me neither. So basically, a cover letter is something that you would give potentially with your CV when you're applying for a job. And it's an opportunity to express yourself a little bit longer. So obviously we said with the CV that tends to be something that's looked at quite briefly, and you would just give sort of bullet points. Whereas in a cover letter, you can really in depth describe why you think you'd be good at a job. It's a little bit formal, but it is also a good way to just establish a bit of a relationship with the recruiter and show them a bit of your personality, which a CV maybe wouldn't do. So the first thing we're going to talk about, well, these are the three things we're going to talk about: the structure, the paragraphs, and the content. So the first thing is the structure, and it is quite formal. And so it's something that if you've never done it before, it's a bit daunting, but basically you would lay it out like a formal letter like this. So you'd have, I think if you click some of the different aspects will like come up. So yeah, so you've got your address in the top right corner, their address in the top left corner. If you know their name, then you should address it to them. If not, you can write dear recruiter or dear manager or dear service admin. Any of those options will be fine. You would name the post that you're applying for, if possible. And then these things are quite obvious to you because we've said them on the CVs. So you want it to be a very like a professional font, nothing too handwritten or decorative. And at the end, I always think this is a strange rule, but if you know their name, you write yours sincerely, and if you don't know their name, you write yours faithfully. Things like that are just something you do to show that you're professional, but I don't think it would stop you getting a job if you got that wrong, if you've got loads of great experience. So if you want to move on, thank you. So this is the general structure of the paragraphs you would include in a cover letter. So the first one would be why you're writing. So because you want a job is the obvious one. So you say, I'd like to apply to this job. I saw it advertised in this place or something like that. In the second paragraph, what you bring to the job. So this would kind of be some highlights from your CV. So if you've got a particular passion, particular interest, a particular qualification, that would be where you would mention it. And then the third paragraph is really important, and it's why do you want the job? And again, that's an opportunity to show your personality a little bit more, show what you know about the industry or the type of job you're applying for. And then the conclusion, which is a really good opportunity to sum up exactly why you think you'd be a good fit for the job. And especially if someone is just skimming the letter, it's a really good way to sum up in a punchy line why you're so great, basically. So I've kind of covered this. I don't want to go into it too much, but yeah, so the first paragraph, just the most important details about you, what you do, why you're applying, where you saw it advertised. And the next paragraph. So I won't read these out, but if you want to read them, yeah, as you can see, it's in full sentences like you would write at school, and it's quite formal. And as you can see, there's two examples there, one where they know the name and one where they don't. And they're both absolutely fine. So again, very similar. They've added a little bit more information about why they would like the job. I have a lot of interest in the future of brick and mortar bookstores. Just a great way to show a bit more of your personality. Next. So again, this is sort of the highlights from your CV. I think an interesting part about this is the part about telling a story. So we're going to come back to this when we talk about interviews, but there's a technique called STAR, which is really, really brilliant for this kind of thing. I used it loads when I was applying for my job, and it stands for situation, task, action, result. Forgot for a second. And it basically is a really good way of structuring your response when you want to tell a story about something you've done. But we're going to come more to that in the interview section. And then paragraph 3, why you want the job.
Sorry.
So, yeah, the 3 things that you could touch on here are why the particular role. So if it's a role that requires dealing with numbers, because you're really good at dealing with numbers, if you enjoy that, or the organisation. For example, I want to work at a bookshop because I like books. I want to work for the NHS because I'm passionate about public health, and your experience. So I would love to work for the NHS because I have volunteered at a care home, for example. Next. Okay, we've got some more examples here. I think we'll be able to circulate this PowerPoint with you guys afterwards so that you can have a read of some of these examples, because they are quite long. I don't really want to go through them all now. But yeah, I think they are quite useful examples of how you can structure your letters. And then, like I said, the conclusion. Makes an interesting point here about being concise. You don't want to just repeat yourself, but it is a good way of summing up your application, and being friendly and confident, saying something like, I look forward to hearing from you, or thank you for considering me for this role. Again, about building that relationship with the recruiter. So yeah, I think the second one is one I would go for, where you say, I'm confident I've demonstrated the skills that you require, and therefore the best candidate for the role is shown above, and expert in communication, policy and research. Because you could read that and be like, yes, I understand this person and where they're coming from. Next slide. Okay, so this is just some general tips for writing a cover letter. I think demonstrate, not commentate, is an interesting one. And I think it's phrased maybe a little bit strangely here, but it kind of means show, don't tell. As in, and I remember doing that in English at school, whereas, so it means don't just say, I'm really good at this, tell them why. So rather than, I'm really good at public speaking, you could say, I've delivered an assembly to my year group, and it was really successful and everyone was really engaged. More about showing than telling. And what it says about the hourglass structure. So just bearing in mind that people will skim it. So put the most important things at the start and the end. And yeah, I think spacing it out really nicely so that it's easy to read quickly, as unfortunately employers don't have that much time to read these things. And I think that sums up the cover letter section. If anyone has any questions about that, please do pop them in the chat or raise your hand. Otherwise, we can move on to the interview section.
We have another question for you guys. So our question is, how would you prepare for an interview, and what are some of the do's and don'ts once you're in the interview?
I've got one come through. Don't talk slang in an interview. That's a really don't.
Yeah, that's important.
About the company, that's a really good idea as well. Really great ideas coming through. What about practice the speech? prepare to ask questions. Oh, prepare to ask questions is a good one. I remember my first interview, I got asked if I had any questions, and I thought you were meant to be doing the asking the questions. But I've heard that it looks really good if you have questions to ask. It shows how excited you are about the job.
Yeah, I think if you ask questions, it makes you look more like interested in the company and more like curious about what they do. So I think it's always good to kind of research the company and say something like, "Oh, like I see your company, for example, like, oh, I see you did this charity event, blah blah blah. What was like, blah blah. Did you get involved?" It's good to ask the employer questions like that, or like about what they do in their everyday job. Yeah, these are some really good ideas, guys. Shall we move on?
Yeah, we can do.
Okay, Flo, do you want to talk about this?
So we kind of mentioned a couple of these, which shows that you guys really know what you're doing. So research the company you're interviewing for, of course. Study your resume and know it well. Amazing how even things about yourself can totally vanish from your head as soon as you're under pressure. So really good idea to read your CV before, so you know exactly what you've done. Know the job description really well, because that's certainly something they're going to be asking you about. Display your skills with concrete examples. So that comes back to the STAR thing that we're going to touch on in a minute. Preparing answers to likely questions. Ramazan in the chat actually mentioned this. So he said, prepare for the usual question that causes confusion. Tell me something about yourself, which is so true. I think sometimes those questions are so big that it's really hard to think of an answer on the spot. So good idea to pre-prepare some answers. Treat everyone you meet on the day as an interviewer is really good practice, to be honest, because one day they might be your colleagues. So it's really important to treat everyone with respect and be really friendly as well. Make eye contact, which is hard in person, but even harder on a video interview. So that's not one you need to worry about too much, but it is good to look into the camera if you can, which I'm trying to do now. And yeah, say I, not we, and take a moment to think before diving in is a really good one. No one's going to mind if you think about your answer for a couple of seconds and be quiet. I think that shows that you're reflective, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that if you, the part about studying your resume and know it well, I'd say print out a copy of your CV and cover letter and take it with you. So like if you get like free time, or there's times where you're like waiting and not doing anything, you can go over your notes, and like if you've prepared for the questions that you think they might answer. Like a lot of like every interview you have is not going to be the same, but you're always going to get questions like, why do you want to work here? What do you know about the company? Stuff like that, very basic generic questions which you can go online and research, like typical job interview questions. I'm sure there's stuff on YouTube as well, and then just kind of do a few bullet points about what you would say, how you would answer that question. And this thing about treat everyone you meet on the day as an interviewer. So obviously right now, like you're not going to have, it's unlikely that you'll have interviews where you go to the actual office or the wherever you want to work and have the interview. But so before COVID, I went to an interview at Honda, and even during the lunch break, like I thought, okay, like it's the lunch break. I wasn't feeling that great, so I thought, yeah, like I'm just gonna go sit in a quiet area by myself. I was literally on my phone for 5 minutes, and someone comes up to me and says, "Don't go on your phone. They're like watching you." And I was like, "What?" And so the guy who said that to me, he was already an intern there, and I was like, "Huh?" And he was like, "Yeah, like, you like if you sit by yourself, you're gonna look antisocial. So go and like talk to people and like mingle." So yeah, that's just a tip. Like even when you think that they're not like watching you, like they are watching you, and they are like looking at how you respond in like different situations. So yeah, moving on. yeah, dress appropriately. If you're on a video call, make sure your surroundings are clean and not distracting. This is important, and I didn't know this the first time I did a video interview, so I did it in a hoodie, and only afterwards I told my friend, "Oh, I had a video interview," and she was like, "Oh, you did it like dressed like that?" And I was like, "Yeah," like, and she was like, "Oh, like you're not supposed to do that," and I was like, "Oh, oops," and I obviously didn't end up getting that job. So yeah, even if it's a video interview, they're at least going to be able to see like your top half. So I'd say wear like a shirt or like a nice top and a cardigan at least, so you look presentable. Flo, do you want to talk more about the STAR technique?
Yeah, so we kind of mentioned it earlier, like I said, it stands for situation, task, action, result. So this would be a really classic question to get in an interview. Give us an example of a time when you worked well as part of a team, I think I would say. So you would start with the situation. So you would say, I was working in a hotel where myself and two peers joined an existing team. That was just the situation you were in. The task is what you were given to do at the time or what you decided to do. So the team were not getting on very well, and there were many underlying issues between the new and existing staff. Action, I sat the team down to air our grievances and work out a plan about how we were going to work better as a team in the future. And then the result, the team ended up getting on really well because of the new measures that I put in place, meaning our satisfaction from customers went way up in our monthly survey. So often the result is something that you can prove happened. So that's a really good example there. The satisfaction from customers went up. And I think it's actually quite obvious, this system. Once you've practiced it a few times, you'll find yourself doing it naturally. You don't have to say, this is the situation, this is the task, this is the action, this is the result. But if you practice in advance, just writing a few of them down with that structure in mind, it really just makes sure you stay focused to answer the question that they've asked you. I think there's more on this. Yeah, so this kind of goes into a little bit more detail. So in the situation, you would be setting the scene, when, where, with who. So basically where you were working, or if you're at school, maybe you're working on a project at school, and the task is what you're trying to achieve. Obviously the action is what you did, how you did it. Emphasize your personal contribution with I rather than we. Even if you are working as a team, it's still important to talk about what you did in particular. And then result is what happened. Did you achieve your goal? What was your personal impact? And that, like it says, is the essential bit, because that's the proof that you achieved something. So you can't forget that bit. And it gives you a country ending to the question. So we've got a bit of time left, and I mean, we'd be happy to answer questions about anything. It doesn't have to be about CVs. If you have any more questions about our jobs, or like quite recently in uni, so anything about that, please feel free to pop them in the chat. When do you hand a cover letter to the workplace? So, it depends on the job, because in the past, when I was at school, for example, when I was applying for jobs, like part-time jobs in restaurants and pubs and that kind of thing, I would take a copy of a cover letter with my CV, like staple them together, and hand it in at the same time. But a lot of jobs these days, you would apply for them online, and they will just ask you for the cover letter as well as the CV, or they might ask for it later. But I think if in doubt, you can send it with your CV. Would you agree, Simran?
Yeah, I'd say like most of the jobs that I've applied for, when you apply online, that's when they ask for your cover letter. So it'll say like, can you please attach your CV and cover letter? So then you just send it then. But even if sometimes jobs don't even ask for cover letters, they kind of just ask you some like job related questions. And then if you already have a cover letter, you might be able to just copy and paste one of those paragraphs into those kind, like depending on what the question is, obviously, you might be able to kind of put that in there or use that to help you. So yeah, honestly, it just depends on the job with that. But yeah, I'd say always just have a cover letter anyway and keep it with you and definitely take it to the interview so you can talk about it. It's
Yeah. Shall we answer the next question? It's hard getting a job because of the pandemic. Do you have any tips on how to stand out even more? That is a very hard question.
That's a hard question, yeah, because I know a lot of people, like from my uni that are like graduating. I know people, yeah, like applying for jobs and they're finding it so hard to get a job. So I'd say I know a lot of people are mainly doing online courses because they're unable to find work experiences and stuff. Um, so I think that would be my advice to stand out, and that's probably what I would do if I didn't have a job right now. Like I'd be trying to learn something that could help me to get a job. For example, like do like an Excel course if I didn't know how to use Excel, or um, something that I thought would be beneficial in the sector that I want to go into. Um, yeah, that would be my advice. Um,
I would say as well, one thing you can do is really like show initiative by just writing to a company that you'd like to work for, even if they're not advertising any jobs, and just show them you're really interested in them and working for them. And even if they don't have any jobs available at the moment, a lot of them will add you to a list. And when a job has become available, you might be one of the first people they tell about it.
yeah, definitely. Oh, sorry.
So just showing you're really enthusiastic, I think, is a good way to stand out.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea. Because I think the worst thing they're gonna say to you is no, sorry, we don't have a job. Like they're not gonna think anything of you or think like that, like why is she asking me this? That's a bit weird. So I think definitely like don't even hesitate. Just if you want something, like if you want a job, if you want an opportunity, I think just go for it. Um, so yeah, the next question is what is your favorite part about your job? Flo, what is your favorite part about your job?
Ooh. My favorite part about my job is probably the breadth of people I get to meet. Because what I do works with like all the different teams. I get to talk to people with like really interesting skill sets and interests. Sometimes I get to speak to the sort of senior leaders at DIT. So occasionally I get to speak to like a minister or a minister's office or a permanent secretary who's like the big boss civil servant. And that's quite exciting because it's quite aspirational that one day I'd quite like a job like that. So yeah, that's probably my favourite part. What about you, Simran?
I guess I'd say my favorite part about my job is probably working with people. Like working from home, it is nice. Like there are good things about it, but I feel like I'm the kind of person I'd rather like work in an office and be around people and kind of like speak to people every day. So yeah, like the chances that I do get to work with people, I do prefer that and I enjoy that more than kind of my own independent projects, which I do still enjoy, but I prefer working with other people. So I prefer it like when we have days where we have like a group. So some of the briefs we do it as a group. So like we all do our own sections, then we combine it. So yeah, I'd say yeah, working with getting to work with new people is probably my favorite part because we don't always do it with the same group of people. It's mainly my team, but then sometimes we involve other people in the briefs. So yeah, I guess that's my favorite part.
I think another really cool part about like working for the civil service that like everyone all civil servants have is that the stuff you're working on is the things that are in the news and the things that you hear like your parents talk about, or you see on like the cover of newspapers that you know, the government are doing this, the government are doing that, and then although obviously you're not contributing to the decisions, it's quite interesting that your work is like has an impact on people's lives, which is I think quite exciting.
Yeah, I like that too because if you, it's nice to know that your job is like meaningful and that like there's a reason for why you're doing what you're doing. I feel like yeah, with like that could be said about loads of jobs, but that's always a nice feeling. Yeah. So yeah, shall we next question?
Yeah, there's a question for you about economics.
How are you finding economics? So yeah, economics, it is good. I'm not sure if you're studying A-level economics right now, but first year uni, um, economics is very similar to A-level economics. Like I did two modules, introduction to micro and introduction to macro, and it was literally the exact same as A-level. So like if you already do the A-level, you already know it. So that's really, if you're like studying that right now, it's really going to help you. If not, then it's still quite easy to learn. So like you can use A-level textbooks even in your first year of uni. And I used a YouTuber, Econ Plus Star, which is amazing. Like he literally taught me everything I know. Um, so yeah, first year is good. Second year is still it's managed, like it's okay, but it does get a bit harder. But yeah, like I still managed to revise and I did enjoy my modules. I found having exams online really hard, not gonna lie. But that's just me because I'm not really an exam person. I prefer coursework. But yeah, it's good. I'd say it's definitely a worthwhile degree, especially like as well have with a placement year. I'm hoping to obviously come out of it with a good job and good experience. So yeah, it's a new course that I want to study, so it's new to me. I'm studying A-level business. Yeah, so definitely I think A-level business will give you some like what's the right word? Like preview, yeah, like you'll know you won't go into it completely clueless. Like you will have a good idea about some of the things that you're going to cover in your degree. So yeah, that will definitely help you. Maths also helps a little bit, but not really, because the maths in your degree is quite basic. Like it's like percentage change and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm sure like you'll end up enjoying it. What subjects did you take for A level? I don't know if you're asking me or Flo, but I did economics, maths, and drama. So obviously, like I don't use drama in my degree, but I do use economics and maths. So yeah, that helped me a lot with my degree at uni. So yeah, Flo, what A levels did you do?
That's so cool that you took drama.
Oh,
I took French, German, and English
that's
because
interesting.
yeah, so I studied languages at university, so it wasn't the most directly related to my job. But yeah, I think, well, that's one of the things about the civil service is like no matter what your interests are or no matter what kind of subjects you study at school, there's a job that you'll be good at.
Yeah, like
Um,
I don't think there's a specific degree that you need to get into the civil service. Like it might depend on your role, I'm not really sure, but I think to get in, you can have any degree.
yeah, definitely. I think there are some roles that you would need a maths degree or a science degree. But so we had the question, what did the civil service do exactly? Which is a brilliant question.
That's yeah, that's very like broad question. The civil service is made up of a lot of departments. So we're from the Department of International Trade, which even still, I mean, this is a really hard question. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, so basically they work together to deliver the government's policies. So obviously the government, like the Prime Minister, and the people he appoints to his cabinet and also the Parliament decide what the policy will be, the laws and the regulations. And civil servants basically work together to put those into practice. So the jobs that civil servants do are so broad. Like if you work at the Department for Work and Pensions, you might work in a job centre and helping people access their benefits and look for jobs. If you work at the Department of International Trade, like we do, it's about putting our trade policy together. So as you guys probably know, we recently left the European Union, which means we've had to make deals to trade, so import and export all our goods. So that's been like a really important function. Is there a Department for Foreign Affairs? There is. It's called the Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office. And that's where, if you want to be a diplomat, you would work there. I'd really like to work there one day. And if you're interested in studying languages, that's a really great place to work. But there's a Department for Education, there's a Department for Health, there's a
department for everything.
Yeah, there's I mean, probably like 50.
Yeah, literally there's loads. Yeah, my line manager, she used to work in the Department of Culture and Media. And like till she told me, I was like, wow, like I didn't even know that existed. So there's literally departments for everything. But yeah, if you guys have got any questions, let us know.
How did you find out about your job vacancy? So I am on a scheme called the Fast Stream. And basically, when I was at university, I think some civil servants, much like we're speaking to you, came and talked to us about the Fast Stream. Is a scheme they advertise to people leaving university, but anyone can, well, you can be older and apply. I think you have to be around like university leaving age. And yeah, it had like a very regimented process. So I had to go to an interview, I had to do some tests. And a lot of people do it. So I think there's something like 1,000 people in my cohort on the Fast Stream. So that's a really good way of getting into the civil service. If you go to uni, to apply to that, because there's so many jobs. Now, what about you, Simran?
Yeah, the way I found out was similar. So these 3 people came to my uni. I think they were also on Fast Stream to talk about like their job and like do a presentation kind of like this, but theirs was more about the actual scheme itself, about what they did and kind of encouraging us to apply. So that was when I first heard about it. And then I applied for, so for placement, there's 2 schemes. There's Government Economic Service and Government Statistical Service. So the Government Economic Service I applied for, and then I got rejected. So then I applied for the Statistical Service, which is what I ended up getting because my job is in a stats team. So yeah, that I heard about from them, and then my mum actually saw it on the website, and she like reminded me and said like, oh, you need to apply for this. And then I was like, yeah. So then I just applied, and then I had my interview, and then I got the job.
Yeah, I was just going to post the link actually to civil service jobs, which is
yeah. Oh, with civil service jobs as well, you can sign up. I signed up for email alerts, so whenever there's new vacancies, they can email you and tell you like this job's available, and you can like filter it with your location and stuff. So yeah, that would be a good tip if you want to like keep up to date and hear more about jobs in the civil service.
I'm sure hopefully that is all the questions, but I'm going to have to draw this to a close because I know that I think some of the students in this group have got to go to another meeting as well. But it's so useful, and it's just so interesting hearing your own career stories and kind of how you got into your jobs. So and good luck, because I know you're at the early stages of your careers. So Florence, you need to go for one of those diplomat jobs that we heard about last week, because they sounded amazing.
I wish I'd been able to go to that presentation. Sounds really good.
It was fascinating. But yeah, thank you so much. And students, if you have any questions that you felt you didn't get answered, then just let me know, because I'm sure I can get them to Florence and Simran easily enough.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, brilliant. And just as a final thing for the students here, that if any of you, we are going to start the civil service mentoring program, which I did email everybody about, after February half term. So that's where you can be mentored by someone, I think just in this department which Florence and Simran work for. So it's e-mentoring, so it's over email, but I would just take as many offers of help and advice that you can at this stage. So yeah, just let me know. I've sent you an email. There's a link to the application form. So yeah, so thank you ever so much. And I'm gonna just end this now.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you guys for listening. It was lovely, and hopefully good luck for everything in the